Sunday afternoon. Um, I've done my workout this morning, obviously, burpees. Pretty good session, actually. 240, just past the finish line. It was a 20-minute busy dad style session, and I hit 239 just before the buzzer. And then 249, I started right when it was about to hit that 20-minute mark, but I wanted to get 240. Um, so I count it with an asterisk next to the side. Um, so it was a good workout. And that was it. Yesterday was a big one. Pulls from Oregon, dips, burpees. It was definitely left me, and it was pulls from Oregon with fives for the first time. So it left me feeling it today. My lats, my biceps, my forearms, shoulders from the dips and the burpees, my chest from the dips and the burpees, triceps, pretty much full body. Um, so it's weird. I'm now using the busy dad sessions and 240 reps as a recovery workout. That was the big push. And those other workouts were supposed to be the recovery in between. It hasn't taken shape that way. That's the way things work, guys. Sometimes the best intentions go sideways, not necessarily in a bad way. It sort of brings me to a topic to possibly talk about, if anyone wants to, either now or later, that we just don't know. It's a mystery. The longer I meditate, years wise, not length of meditation. Um, my daily meditation is twice a day for about 30 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes shorter, um, usually no less than 20 minutes. I might throw in a third session if I feel that, if I have the time, if I feel like it, if I want to. No specific reason. I'm not going to get anything more out of it. I'm not going to get more awakened. I'm not going to get more calm. I'm not going to get more anything. I enjoy meditating. It doesn't have to lead to anything. It does have benefits. That's the issue. I think a lot of people in the non-duality circles. Um, Duncan, hey, glad to see you here. I appreciate it. My goal on my live sessions is to make sure that I read the comments out loud instead of just replying to them. So it seems like I'm having these random conversations with myself. So Duncan Walsh Fitness, one of my all-time favorite channels, one of my all-time favorite people who leaves comments that are always keen and insightful. They get me thinking sideways, meaning if I have a point, I'm making a point, um, that I see things broader, not just narrow in on that one thing that I'm talking about, but from a different perspective, which is important, which is important. And let me get that out correctly. In my excitement of seeing Duncan, um, my words are going all over the place. Actually, Duncan says it's my warped mind, unfortunately. Duncan, I would say it's your warped mind, fortunately. Um, Otherwise, you'd be like everyone else. Not that, here's the thing. Everyone else isn't like everyone else, but everyone else believes that they're like everyone else. Embrace your uniqueness, which you do, obviously, in your workouts, in your comments, and the humor that you bring. Your short that you did a few days ago, uh, where you were going through the body parts, biceps and shoulder press inclines, and you finally mentioned to the filmer, "Get out of my face." Pure gold, entertaining as well as informative. Um, Embrace your warped mind because that leads you to that unique expression that only Duncan Walsh can bring. Um, if more people were willing to do that, imagine the problems that could be solved. Um, Oh, the T-shirt. I actually don't know what it is. It's just some kind of design that I probably got in a bargain bin in a department store for $1.99, or something along those lines. I have a collection of shirts that are either from concerts that I've saw in 1980 something, or races that I've been in from the past 15 years, um, or like fitness oriented shirts that I got for participating in something. Um, Other than that, I don't think I have any other clothes. Um, but we can talk about books. Um, I'm always happy to talk about books, and I always have a collection of books to talk about. Duncan had mentioned that he could use a few good books recommendations as well, as could we all, because I'm always in the market for new books on, I want to say specific topics, but I'm open. I do like fiction. I do like historical work. I love science, especially natural science or physics. I read a ton of physics books. I understand less than 1% of any book on physics that I read, specifically quantum mechanics. But intuitively, quantum mechanics makes sense. Spiritually, it makes sense. It's basically saying, and I know that there will be a physicist somewhere who may stumble across this. I don't know why. Maybe they want to learn something about burpees. They stumble across my channel and say, how can this guy talk about the spirituality of physics in a serious manner? Well, for one, I don't talk about anything in a serious manner. Everything I talk about is lighthearted. Um, and I don't necessarily believe everything that I say, which doesn't necessarily mean that I think I'm wrong. It just means that I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because I was talking about the longer that I meditate year wise, not in length, but in years, um, the less I know, the less sure I am about anything. And the more I get to participate in the great, great mystery um, of the universe, of the innerverse, maybe is a better way of saying it, because you don't find a universe, you find an extension of self, self with a capital S, not the little ego based self that we live our life through, but the big capital letter S, self, in which life is expressed through us. Key subtle difference. Duncan, what kind of book are we thinking of? Um, I have I have a mini library here. I have a mini library in the next room. I have two mini libraries over there, and more downstairs and more in the basement in my workout room. Um, I don't know if Duncan asked if the Arthur uh, C. Clarke's TV show was in the U.S. I know I know the name, but I don't know if his show was on in the US or not, to be honest with you. I mentioned the other day in a video, I need to make better use of Google while I'm talking, because I have it right here. I am right in front of a desktop. Um, I have the entire world at my fingertips. I got Google and YouTube already brought up. Um, you know what? Well, we're here. We may as well make use of um, Google. If I can talk, here's the thing. I was say if I can talk and do something else, I don't know if I can talk and type at the same time, and that might be um, a good workout type of thing, some type of activity that combines two distinctive pathways, not just neurological, tough word to get out, but also physically at the same time. So Let's see. You know what? I believe, and they're not mine, but I believe I might have some of his books laying around the house. Um, Lewis, how are you? Lewis, have you met Duncan Walsh Fitness? Um, Duncan Walsh Fitness Motivation to be exact. Do you guys have a similar intensity? Um, very um, a very hardcore approach. Duncan is extremely explosive. I mentioned that earlier today on one of his videos that he put up. Um, Lewis is um, unique in that he's seamlessly explosive. You don't notice how explosive he is because there's so much precision in his movement. It belays the grace belays the explosiveness. Um, I would say for me, not to toot my own horn, but I bring a certain grace through awkwardness through my movements. Um, there's certainly not a lot of precision. I have too many hurt uh, body parts that wish to go in different directions. Um, it takes a certain amount of concentration to keep it all together. Um, maybe concentration isn't the right word, as maybe it is. Absorption is a better word. There are forms of meditation where you become absorbed in the object of the meditation. Um, yeah, there might be a sprinkling of grace, uh, Duncan says. Sprinkling of grace. I don't know if he is referring to my burpees. Uh, maybe particular aspects of the movement, um, like the stomach hitting part. Maybe even that part, Lewis brings a intensity to that. Um, I was looking at your jump squats, Duncan, and your, well, not the jump squats, but when you come out of the burpee, when you do the 4 count and you come out and you get your legs all the way up behind you, I would definitely fall down without a doubt. But to be fair, even through probably 40 plus years of yoga practice and some qigong, um, surprisingly, I still fall down on a regular basis. Um, and I did when I was trail running ultra races. There was probably not a 100-mile, a 24-hour, a 50-mile race that I've done that I didn't fall down at least once or get lost. Um, I was race renowned for getting lost in the easiest races. Um, I believe you're correct, Duncan, who said that for those who aren't reading the comments, um, that it's good to get. Duncan talks about him trying to get some sort of dynamic movement in a workout, um, which I agree. We lose explosiveness to such an extent as we age, as well as simple mobility that can be fixed with even slow, deep squats. It doesn't have to be squatting for reps. It doesn't have to be squatting with weight, but like the Qigong wall squats that I do, or low rep goblet squats, Turkish get-ups with a kettlebell or a dumbbell, combined with an explosive movement of some kind. Now, I don't know, Duncan, how you feel about just a plain old burpee as an explosive movement. Um, I know your burpees are done uh, in that explosive manner, bringing the legs up, getting the jump in. Um, probably the vast majority of burpees that are done with the jump, because that's counting CrossFit people. However, the vast majority of burpees that you see on burpee channel videos are done without the jump. Um, I obviously prefer it without the jump, although when I first started doing burpees, you know, years ago, football in high school, we always had the jump. It was sort of a blessing not to have to do the jump, to discover the jumpless burpee. Um, the last time I came close to a sprint was, um, that's a good question, because I do run often, daily. minimum of half a mile every day, and it's been going a streak going on for quite some time. Um, and that's always combined with a long distance walk. Um, and I do on occasion throw in some faster stuff. Um, of course, up until COVID, I was racing all the time. And no matter if I walked the race, a 24-hour race or whatever, or if I ran a race, if it was a 50K, a 50 mile, or a 100 miler, I would sprint for that finish line at the end. Now, the sprint after a 100-mile race looks considerably different than a sprint um, coming in from 100 meters. But um, I do agree that we rarely sprint. We There's so much things as a collectively that we don't do, um, and a little bit of it doesn't have to be a lot. I don't think you have to sprint a lot, but on a regular basis to get the benefits from um, would do us all good hormonally, specifically for men, um, because it does produce a great amount of growth hormones. It does produce a great amount of testosterone. We could hold on to those helpful hormones for a longer period of time at the in the amount that we need if we added in some type of high intensity stuff. Um, Now, I don't know how you feel, Duncan. Let's say the other day I did the Navy SEALs. Actually, I did two things. I did one pump, and then the next day I did Navy SEALs, where I did the minute intervals, the burpee Matty routine, the hard target routine. Um, I guess rightfully we can consider that a sprint. It's not a running sprint, but it's an all-out effort of 1 minute. So a burpee sprint, full body sprint. Um, for a long time, I was doing kettlebells, actually, competitive kettlebell lifting, and I would have a last minute sprint in my sets. Or some days I would just do sprint sets, interval sprint sets. Um, so it's interesting the things, again, that we need physically to make us not just physically fit, but to make sure that we age um, in a manner that best suits our um, our ability to age, I guess is the best way to say it. Because, they talk about some of the indications of um, Alzheimer's is a weak grip, losing your grip as we age. Also, our longevity can be reflected in a grip. Few of us do direct grip training, nor do we have to, but we can hang from a pull-up bar for 30 seconds every day, a minute every day. I would agree. I don't know if you can actually sprint without getting up on the toes. At least a hard effort of a sprint. Now, of course, I've done some race walking, and you can do a race walking sprint, and you're still doing heel toe, um, which is the correct way to race walk. But it's not that you do get your heart rate up, but not to the same extent as if you're just sprinting out there. So yeah, hanging from a pull-up bar, getting in some type of fast, explosive movement, um, getting in some type of high intensity where, as Duncan was saying, you're getting the heart rate up. Um, Important stuff, all things that we should consider as we're aging. Um, Duncan, you're in your 50s, mid 50s. I'm in my late 50s. So aging's on my mind, not in a bad way, because I'm able to do everything I love to do. So I'm actually a year older than you, Duncan. And I say that I probably look maybe half a dozen years older. Um, I always think to myself, I look pretty good for a 70-year-old. at the age of 58. However, aging, I can do every single thing I want to do. Maybe not for as intense as I used to, maybe not for as many reps as I used to, maybe not the same amount of weight, but I can get up every single day and do basically whatever I want. Um, I plan, or maybe a year wasted. uh, I have mentioned quite a bit that I have um, quite a sordid past from 1980 something to 1990 something. Um, I held on to my wild days much longer than anybody rightly should. Um, and never missing a workout. Even then, we used to have horrendous squat sessions on Saturdays, Saturday morning, after Friday night being out, with the trash can nearby, because inevitably um, we would end up needing to use it after, we wouldn't hold back just because we had punished ourselves the night before. It meant all the more reason why we needed to squat hard or do whatever we did that day um, hard as well. Um, I sort of, um, I'm lucky that I did work out during those times and that my diet wasn't that bad during those days of bad habits, extremely bad habits. But I am fortunate that I'm not paying a heavy price for that now. Um, again, I can get up every morning and do the stuff that I love to do. I can do burpees every single day. I can do a hard workout every single day. I walk several miles every day, running interspersed throughout. Interspersed throughout. Um, I do yoga twice a day and other mobility work as well. Mobility work, yoga, all keys, in my opinion, to aging. That um, the reason why I can go fairly hard every day is because I do restorative work almost constantly through the day. Um, Easily. It's just easy to fit in. I walk by a wall, I do a Qigong wall squat. Um, I have, I find myself with an extra 20 minutes here, I do some joint mobility, working the joint through a full range of motion, getting that synovial fluid moving. My twice a day meditation routine, um, which has been forever in my life, sitting down to write. All of these are not just things that I love to do, but they have a purpose. They keep me mentally sharp. They keep me physically going and active. They keep my joints active and healthy, even having some problems. Even feeling a bit of uh, arthritis in my knee, a little bit of issues with my shoulder, um, a back that can be iffy at times. I've mentioned before that I was actually diagnosed with a misaligned jaw and arthritis in my jaw that I can't get fixed right now. Hopefully sometime soon, but um, it has caused quite a bit of issues. However, none of those things um, hinder me in any way. They're inconveniences. The inconveniences of being 58, and those inconveniences are far outweighed by how good I feel on a regular basis. I have a diet that keeps me healthy, a diet that keeps me compassionate and kind. Um, I have a um, meditation practice that keeps me spiritually attuned. I have a writing practice that I do every single day and have done again for 20 plus years um, that keeps me inspired. I wake up every morning at 4 o'clock. I should correct that. I've mentioned this before, I wake up every morning at 4:02 because I remember thinking only a completely insane person would insist on getting up every morning at 4 a.m. to meditate and to write and to do yoga, um, take a sunrise walk. However, 4:02, that's a whole different ballgame right there. David, how are you? I'm looking forward to popping in at 3 o'clock. Um, David, do you know Duncan And I believe actually Lewis was on um, earlier today uh, with the Sunday crew. So I know you two. If you didn't know each other before, you know each other now. Hopefully, um, David, um, we're talking about aging, sort of things to do, things to do now, no matter what your age is, to keep you healthy, to keep you aging in a positive way. There's no, I haven't raced since, good. I'm glad to see, Duncan, that you and David know each other. Um, Everyone should. There's big names in the burpee world. I don't know if any longer we should call it the burpee world because everyone is now exploring so many different avenues um, that it's really just a unique niche, a burpee fitness avenue that we're all going down in so many different ways. Um, I've been inspired with the pools from Oregon. I'm not sure inspired is the right word. It might be too painful to be called inspired. It might be too unpleasant. Although the two don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can be inspired. I was inspired to run 100 miles. That was in no way a pleasant experience, at least the first time or the second time, as it snowed and rained during both of those races. Um, but I was still inspired. And there were some moments of sheer magic that happened in those races, the only way I can describe it, where I knew. I remember at mile 60, my first 100, and there was freezing rain coming down, but it was crystallized. I was probably hallucinating. um, but I knew without a doubt that I was going to finish that race. After 3 failed attempts at 100 miles, I knew this time I had it finished. Not because I felt particularly good. No one feels good at mile 60. But because I knew that even if it got worse, I was still able to move. And I still wanted to move. And I was still perfectly happy right where I was, as miserable as I was in the freezing rain, not being able to find a pair of long pants that I had in my drop bag. Maybe I forgot to pack them. But I was shivering. I was freezing. The person that I was running with decided he was going to drop at mile 60. This wasn't willpower. And David, I agree that it actually is completely insane to run 100 miles. However, it was one of the most worthwhile things that I've done. But I just, again, I don't know. It wasn't willpower. I didn't grit my teeth and say, I'm going to push through. I'm going to give it everything I got because I had nothing left except for surrendering and allowing everything during that race to carry me, allowing the good. No, I didn't run the whole way. Very few people do, except for those top-notch people. I was middle of the pack runner at best. I have won my age group in some 24-hour races, only because the weather turned really crappy and I'm really stubborn, or I don't mind bad weather. So I could sit all night in the wind and the rain and just smile my way through, put my head down and go. If you learn how to enjoy crappy weather, you are never left in the rain because you're always smiling. You're always enjoying it. You're not asking to feel good. You're not asking to experience anything other than what you're experiencing. Crappiness is just another avenue of what nature offers. And if you're perfectly happy in whatever nature offers, you're good. And my acceptance of bad weather led me to receiving a couple trophies, a couple plaques. First place in my age group, which again, there wasn't a whole lot of, as David said, 100 miles is insane. there's not a lot of old insane people out there who want to run 100 miles. So chances are, if you do it long enough, you're going to get a trophy. Not a participation trophy, but you do get a participation. For 100 miles, you get a belt buckle. I've worn a belt maybe a handful of times in my entire life, but I am proud of my belt buckles. And the top-notch guys, that's the amazing thing, is 100-mile race would take me 24 hours plus. 100-mile race took me 29 hours and 5 seconds. I should have sprinted a little harder and gotten under that 5 seconds. 28:55 sounds so much better than 29:05. 29:59 sounds better than 29:05. Now, having said that, 29:04 doesn't sound any better than 29:05. You got to get under that 29-hour mark. But there was people in those races who were at home, showered, big meal, 8 hours worth of sleep, and I was still out there on the course. That's how insanely fast some of these guys are. I am a slacker. In my defense, in my first 200-mile races, the finish line was uphill. So imagine running 99.5 miles and then having a sprint 0.5 up a hill. That's the definition of suck. That is the definition of, if you could take a photo of that, it would be the textbook photo explanation of what it is for life to truly, truly suck in that moment. I didn't mind the rain. I didn't mind the freezing rain. I wasn't super happy with that uphill sprint at the end. But man, it was good to be done. Sort of. Oddly enough, one of the hardest parts of doing a really long race is stopping. And then you feel everything begin to cramp up. You sit for a minute and you feel like you physically aged 20 years in the space of those 5 minutes of sitting down. And you're going to be walking that way for the next 2 weeks. I would always run the day after a race, no matter 24-hour race, 100-mile race, 50-mile race. I would always go out the next day. What took me a long time to recover from, especially as I started getting older, I didn't get my first 100 in until I turned 50. It was actually 2 weeks after my 50th birthday. I have a friend who has done 100 miles in his 30s, in his 40s, and more than 100 miles. He's probably done over 100-mile races. He was the first person to ever do the Grand Slam of ultra running, which is 400-mile races and the big ones out there, in a 3-month period of time. But he has done a ultra in his 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and now in his 70s, 5 decades of a 100-mile race. And it would not surprise me if he doesn't pull one off when he hits 80 in the next 10 years or so. Wouldn't surprise me. However, ultra running as a whole doesn't lead to great aging. I've seen a lot of people who can keep moving, but they are busted up. You need to get some strength training. You need to get some mobility work. You need to do yoga or some type of stretching. You need to be a broader overall athlete. And Duncan, you mentioned a book recommendation at the beginning of the conversation, Born to Run. It is the book that inspired me to run 100 miles. I was training for competitive kettlebell lifting. I read the first paragraph of Born to Run, and I knew that I was going to do a 100-mile race within that first paragraph. I stuck with the kettlebells. I had to lower the intensity, but I went full bore into running. I did my first 50K a little over 2 months later. Um, and between 45 and 50, I did quite a few 50Ks, a couple 50s. Um, it was only after, again, 3 failed attempts at 100, um, finally nailing it, that I felt like I wired everything down. I ended up with over 100 mile in a 10-year ultra running career. I ended up with over 100 races of 50K or more, including 24-hour races, 6-hour races, 12-hour races, um, and a couple marathons thrown in there as well. Um, yeah, running is, David, you're right. Running is just, it is hard on the body. Now, of course, I remember years ago, and I forget who it was, he talked about squatting and being bad for your knees. And what he said was, squatting isn't bad for your knees, but how you squat might be bad for your knees if you're not squatting correctly, if you're not biomechanically squatting in the right way. Running isn't so much bad for your body. How you run might be bad for the body. So if you're getting in a lot of pounding, if you're doing nothing but heel striking, Duncan mentioned that, when he sprints, he's up on his toes. Optimally, you should be, when you're not sprinting, you should be hitting mid-foot, gliding into that. I mentioned Born to Run, not so much to talk about my start of ultra running, but he talks about the Raramuri native Mexicans who are natural born ultra runners, thinking nothing of covering 50, 60, 100 miles in the course of a day, just running from one village to the next. They play a game that is similar to soccer. They kick a wooden ball. The boys and the girls, the men, the women, all of them playing together. And they will do that over the course of 50 plus miles, playing this game all day, all night. And the point is, hi, Mocha. Mocha, we have your, as you referred to him, the magical Canadian here. And I don't know if Lewis is still here. And you haven't had the pleasure of meeting Duncan Walsh, but you've heard me talk about Duncan. Duncan was going to go live with me earlier in the week, but was unable. Mocha, we're talking ultra running. And the funny thing is that I don't want to say that I dragged Mocha into ultra running. I was heavily insistent that she join me. And once she did, she was full bore in. She would deny this, but in all the races that I've done, she was always one of the toughest ultra runners out there because she kept going no matter what, no matter how she felt. Didn't have to be a blistering pace, but she kept going through some pretty bad times. And we had some great races together. So yeah, I was insistent on helping to get her out there, just providing that pathway. And now she is, now in the post-COVID world, she is eager to get back out there. And she had mentioned that earlier today. And she is the one that is now providing the inspiration to get me out there and hitting the trails. The point, Duncan, that I was making, and David, with Born to Run and the Raramuri and the game that they played, is they weren't becoming great runners. They were becoming great athletes. They were running and they were playing. It was over mixed terrain. They were doing it in homemade sandals. So they were building foot strength, ankle strength, calf strength, hip strength. It was kicking the ball. So they were working abductor, adductor. So insistent. It's a nice description of the things that we have offered each other through our lives together. Maybe I was a little insistent on the vegan path 10 plus years ago. I think 13 years now, a vegan for me. Another thing with the Raramuri is they had a plant-based diet, not vegan, not vegetarian, plant-based, meaning that meat is harder to get there anyway. Um, but they built that athletic background, and only then did they become great runners. We do things the opposite. We're very specific in what we do with our kids. Become a good baseball player, become a good football player, become a wrestler, become this, become that, instead of explore, be physical, be fit, and then find the path that brings you the most joy, that you're good at, that your body is. And yes, Mocha, you are, because you talk about it a lot and you want to get out there. Um, you want to train for it. Um, so it is, an aspiring avenue for me to want to get back there as well. Although I am fighting it a bit, not purposely so, more people so. I'm not quite ready to be social again. Through years of being um, through the COVID shutdown and then my father's caregiver before he passed away, um, I became very um, insular, keeping to myself with just a few people coming into my little world. I'm not quite ready to step fully out of it, although I have. I actually go to stores. I actually talk more up close to my neighbors as we're walking along the bike paths here. So I'm opening up a bit. But anyway, become an athlete, whatever type of athlete that is. Become fit, and then the whole world's open to you. Um, I'm not saying that you neglect the skills at an early age, but you can build those skills while still having that full athletic base. Um, those who have done that really have become outstanding um, athletes. You think of Bo Jackson, um, you think of Michael Jordan. He wasn't, obviously all-time great basketball player, but he wasn't a bad baseball player. The fact that he was able to play even minor league baseball for someone who's built for basketball, that's impressive. That's an all-around athlete. Um, for me, I think that's what we should do as far as instead of having a physical ed class where we're teaching kids how to play dodgeball, um, develop a fitness base, explore different sports, different avenues of motion, and find out what you're good at, what you're drawn to, and then you start developing more specific skills later. If you take a kid who shows that he's really good at pitching a fastball, and all you have him do is pitch a fastball, by the time he's out of college, he's going to have a shot arm, or he's well on his way to having a limited career, with few exceptions. Nolan Ryan, who was throwing 100 miles an hour when he was 30 something, 39, 40 years old. Um, I'm throwing out the few names in professional sports that I actually know. And as you can tell, they're all from 40 years ago, 30 years ago. Um, I'd be hard pressed to I couldn't name a professional baseball player. Maybe if I thought about it, a professional football player, maybe. I don't know any boxers any longer. I used to. Um, I know a lot of ultra runners, a lot of real good ones. Um, I personally know some ultra runners who can do 100 miles and maintain a 7-minute mile pace the entire time. Again, in the space of my 100-mile race, people would um, finish their race, go home, have dinner, take a shower, sleep for 8 hours, and I would still be on the course. So I was not fast, but I was stubborn. I was persistent. Um, if I have a superpower, it would be showing up every day, um, as I do with burpees, and as I do with yoga, and as I do in anything that I enjoy. And that's the key. I mentioned before, I mentioned almost all the time. And I know sometimes people um, either think I'm joking or they'll say, no, that's not really true. I don't consider myself the most determined or dedicated person in the world, but I am highly inspired. Um, and I do the things that I enjoy. And I do the things that I enjoy every day, which is why I do burpees every single day. My I train for the training because I don't have a specific goal. If I was a boxer, I would train. I'm glad you mentioned that, Mocha. In the freezing rain, uphill both ways, because I mentioned that to Duncan Walsh, that I sprinted uphill on my first 200-mile races. Um, so now I have in writing full support. um, when I brag, at least I'm being honest in what I brag about. Um, Living an inspired life is more important than living a determined life, in my opinion, because eventually determination fails us. We're too tired to do something. Something hurts too much. We're too busy. We're too whatever. But inspired, I am never too busy to be inspired. I am never too sore. I might be slower. Um, and yes, I also mentioned that I get lost quite frequently and that I fall down often as well. Um, and Mocha says obsessed is what you get. And she has a valid point, but it's a happy obsession. The things that I do are the things that bring the most joy, the things that bring me happiness. To wake up every morning and meditate at 4 doesn't take effort. Now, of course, by effort, I don't mean the physical exertion of getting out of bed. Um, I mean, it doesn't take that mental effort of forcing myself to do something that I dread to do. There's very few things that I dread. And even those, if you can sort of see that line of intent that exists within it, then it doesn't become an ordeal. 100 miles wasn't an ordeal. It could seem like it, but there was so much smiling going on. There was so much joy. There was so much everything. The only word that I can use, and I use this often as well, the Buddhist concept, the Buddhist phrase, suchness, because it doesn't leave anything out. Suchness holds the rain, it holds the snow, it holds the getting lost, it holds the falling down. It all belongs. You don't get to pick and choose. You don't get to pick and choose in life. So for me to say I only do the things that I enjoy, in a broader sense, it means that there's very little that I don't enjoy, and that includes the things I don't enjoy. If that makes sense. It sounds like I screwed up what I was trying to say, but I actually meant very specifically that I even enjoy the things I don't enjoy. It brings me something. It brings me something important to my life. Um, and I do pull people into my obsessions. Um, because if you're going to be obsessed about something, it's good to have friends. Share your obsession. Be obsessed with those you love. Mocha's curse was that I loved her, and I dragged her into everything that I did, literally, as well as everyone else, my friends, my family in certain ways. Not selfishly, well, maybe selfishly, if you're going to do something that makes you feel miserable, bring someone along. Misery loves company, so they say. So anyway, that's the big thing with joy. It holds a lot. It doesn't, we can call it unconditional. It doesn't make those distinctions. If you can get to that point, life never disappoints. How could it? Because it holds everything. And again, that's not putting on a false sense of positivity, because it holds the negative. You see the negative, you see it plainly. I know I'm going to get blisters. I know I'm going to fall down. I know I'm going to get lost. I know I'm going to get cold. But those aren't discouragements. It's part of the game, part of the things that make you smile. And all of it makes me smile. All of it. Every aspect about an ultra, every aspect about burpees, every aspect about getting up and meditating, and the writing that I do. I am never, um, I never have writer's block. I haven't had writer's block in well over 20 years because there's always something to write about. Write about not writing. Write about the silence that you're experiencing right now, the emptiness of not having any words to write about. Write about today. Here it is. Thrasis, right here. I know I pronounced that wrong. The big book that sounds like a dinosaur. That's what we can call it. Has lots of words in it. I opened it at random this morning. I came across the word patchwork. I wrote my blog, my daily blog today, about patchwork. That things in life seem to be a patchwork of events, of objects, of individuals, of items. But truly looking, truly seeing, we don't see a patchwork. We don't see things. We don't see objects. We don't see items. It's too seamless for that. Everything flows together. The tree isn't separate from the earth. The branch isn't separate from the sky. The sky isn't separate from the atmosphere. And on it goes. That's why I mentioned earlier with Duncan about the universe. We very briefly started talking about physics, cosmology. More rightly, it could be said the interverse or the everyverse, because it's the infinite goes in this direction as much as it goes in that direction, and ultimately it's directionless. It just is. We're back to the Buddhist word suchness. And believe it or not, suchness includes burpees, and it includes squats, and it includes pull-ups, and it includes ultra running. And you know what? I have Duncan here, and he was a high-level professional athlete. And I believe it was squash, Duncan. So I think you sort of know that you move like an athlete. And of course, squash is a very athletic sport. But you don't just move like someone who was very specific, this type of athlete. You know, you move like an athlete, and that led you to being great in squash versus just having that very specific skill set of being a squash player. So that was sort of the point that we were going with. The point, as in every single thing that I talk about, ultimately comes down to being absolutely pointless, as my conversation is everywhere. As Mocha said, everything. You know, she will write about writer's block, ran on restaurant servers, people working in bookstores. I have written about anything and everything, and I always try to tie it into a spiritual connotation, not because I'm making an effort to make it spiritual, but that everything simply is spiritual. Some people frown upon using that word, spiritual, but for me, it's all encompassing. So if you say God, then everyone brings their concept of God into the mix. I love the Hebrew tradition of leaving out the O in God, leaving that as mystery, because we simply don't know. We have our own interpretation of God, but it is not God. As it says, beginning of the Tao Te Ching, the Tao that can be told is not the true Tao. The God that can be owned specifically is not the true God. So, where was I, guys? Write about whatever. And I tie it together in a spiritual connotation because I find that everything is spiritual, not because I'm making an effort to bring it to my specific genre of work. But, you know, there's an old saying. I'm going to wrap things up here in just a minute, guys. But there is the old saying of the young boy in India who was sitting at the feet of a holy presence, a guru, a great yogi, and the yogi picked up an orange and said, I will give you this orange. Hey, I'm looking at your name. I want to say hi to you. Uh, Kia, am I pronouncing that right? I'm going to say hi to you. Um, anyway, the yogi, the great yogi, picked up an orange and said, I will give you this orange if you can show me where, teasingly to the boy, if you can show me where God is. And the young boy, infinitely wise, as only the young and innocent are at times, said, I will give you all of the oranges if you can show me where God is not. That's the important lesson. If you can't have a spiritual experience when you're doing 100 reps of burpees or a set of pull-ups or a set of squats or running 100 miles or eating a meal or writing, then I don't know. I don't have a description. Let's just say that it's all a spiritual experience, or as is it D. Chardin who said, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but spiritual beings having a human experience. Um, that is, for me, the best way of looking at it. And when, for whatever reason, my life made a shift in that direction, it was always in that direction, but actually experiencing it, seeing it, everything changed. Writing became a pleasure. No more writer's block. No more agonizing over not being able to write or express myself. Um, everything I did just became this great, great, loving experience that served me so well. Served me as a caregiver with my mother with Alzheimer's, with my father as he was dying from heart failure, congestive heart failure. When you find the joy within the agony and you see that they are not separate experiences, but an experience, the experience, life. It's just life. It's how. So Mocha says Kea is pronounced Kea, which doesn't help me in the least. It's just another word that I can't pronounce. You have replaced one word that I can't pronounce, one name that I can't pronounce, with another name that I can't pronounce. I appreciate the attempt at being helpful, knowing that I am going to screw up, regardless of the name that you put up there. Paul from Oregon and Mocha, David, Duncan, Lewis was here. This has been a day of great company so far. I appreciate everyone being here, putting up with the weird topics that have gone every way. Kaya. So you broke it up into now two things I can't pronounce and one thing with a hyphen that I can't pronounce. I don't know what to say. Your heart is in the good place, but my mouth does not work in the pronunciation of certain things. Never has and never will. And you have heard me talk for over 21 years. You know this well. For you, Mocha was a linguist in the Air Force for 23 years, by the way, for those who have not heard me mention that before. Kaya. I apologize. I am butchering your name, not on purpose, not to be funny. I honestly cannot pronounce certain things to the life of me. Now, I could blame it on the fact that I do have arthritis in my jaw, a misaligned jaw, causing me quite a bit of discomfort. But the truth of the matter is, I just can't pronounce certain things. I have no excuses whatsoever, except, I mumbled. There you go. Yes, 23 and a half years Mocha has been in the service, in the Air Force, um, proudly so. And she was a linguist. So she knows how to pronounce things. I shouldn't have to know how to pronounce everything. I can just rely on her and say, Mocha, say this for me, please. And being the loving presence that she is in my life, she would happily do so. And then immediately make fun of me for not being able to pronounce it. That's the secret to a happy relationship. Um, so we have Paul from Oregon. Um, and I've recently had a bad experience with pulls from Oregon yesterday, which means that I did them. It's not specifically a bad experience. I didn't fall off the pull-up bar. I didn't tweak a muscle. A bad experience doing pulls from Oregon means that you've done pulls from Oregon. And I did. Mocha is still trying her best to get me to pronounce the name. And again, I apologize. If I hear it, that's different. If I hear it, I will say it right the first time, and then each time I say it proceeding after that initial, I will say it in a differently wrong way until I'm corrected. And then the whole process starts again. That's that's just the way it is. And again, 20, I think going on 22 years now, Mocha knows this. I should be happy that she has faith in me, that eventually I will say something right. I will say something correct. That kind of faith doesn't come easy. That type of patience with someone doesn't come easy. That, my friends, is a lasting, loving relationship no matter what it says on paper. So, back to pulls from Oregon. They suck. I did fives yesterday for the first time, and I did my fives unbroken. However, I rested a pretty good length of time between the rungs of that ladder. Bo does know sports, that's for sure. I think he would have been a better baseball player had he not suffered those blows through football. Paul, sometime you're going to have to tell the story of your band days, of your wild California playing in a band, your rock and roll lifestyle. I know before Busy Dad, you were a smoker. And Busy Dad, what a positive influence he's been on so many people. I know there's a debate for some people. Is it sustainable? The Busy Dad program, is it sustainable? It doesn't have to be sustainable. It can be a background. It can take you in any kind of direction that you want it to do. It's a great program. Make it your own. That's certainly what I did, and that's certainly what Paul did. Look where Paul is right now after his start, Busy Dad. And now he has become the pull-up inspiration, drawing me within. David, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. I appreciate your participation. And I will see you shortly, in about 45 minutes or so. Anyone here who didn't see it, David is going live at, I believe, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard, I think. Busy Dad, yes. No, Paul from Oregon isn't that guy. But Busy Dad, Max Edward, he has inspired both Paul and I. Really in a deep, deep way for me with the Busy Dad program, because I had, for a short time when my dad was sick, and I didn't want to take a lot of time for my workout, 20 minutes of burpees. Bam. If I had more time, I did more. If I only had 20 minutes, I knew I was getting an outstanding workout, and I was heading in a direction, a goal, numbers. which are always helpful for me. Not the end all be all of any program, but they can be an important, uh, they play an important role in inspiration of pulling us in a specific direction. I saw 200 burpees. I saw 100 Navy SEALs, things that were difficult. But if I worked hard, I could hit this number much in the same way as with ultra running. If I trained right, I would do a 50K. Paul does have his own unique um, role that he has played in inspiring me. And I'm very appreciative of that. I hope I show that and mention that. Because Paul's another one, he shows up no matter what. And not only that, he will let you know that there was a good chance he didn't show up. There was a good chance that he might not want to show up. However, here he is. He's shown. The annoying little brother of inspiration. Well, I'm not sure annoying is the right word. Because your pull-up program is annoying is just too innocuous of a word. I threw that out there knowing that I was going to probably say that one correctly. So I threw that out for Mocha's sake. And yeah, I would say more like the evil little brother of inspiration. I think that might be a more apt description for Paul from Oregon. Because you do, not just the pull-up plan, but you do throw out some fairly awful things. Just the other day with the squat and the burpees. Actually, I need to do Sean's routine on my next mixed day. Waffle gaming, do you hate all furies? I would say no. And I'm saying that in the absence of knowing really what a fury is. But there's nothing that I can rightly claim to hate. So, no. As a matter of fact, I welcome all furies. Not even knowing exactly what they are, I would say that they are welcome. I hope I don't give off that fury-hating presence that you were drawn to my long, over an hour talk, way too long, because you thought, that guy, look at that guy, he must hate furies. I don't. I don't know what they are, but I don't hate them. So, what were you watching, Paul? No, I didn't say I hope Furbies. I'm not saying Furbies. Furies? Oh, you're saying Mocha. With Mocha, she said Furby. I don't hate Furby either. I don't rightly know what Furby is. I seem to recall he was something. Oh, Paul, I didn't see you. So, sorry about that. I would have said, obviously, I would have said hi. Mocha pointed out the other day that my live stream seems to cut out and come back on, as I missed somebody yesterday as well. So, waffle gaming, I don't dislike or hate Furies or Furby or rightly anything at all. Oh, you weren't watching live. That would make it hard for me to say hi. Most definitely. So, all right, guys. It has been my longest talk to date talking about ultra running, and I have done an ultra talking performance. Pretty much leaving me, I don't want to say talked out, because, I've just spent 10 minutes talking about Furbies and Furies. And I could probably have a complete conversation about those two things and not even know what they are, but I could have a conversation about them. Um, it is not that I am particularly gifted in the conversational department. It is that I have a very active imagination, and I find that I can um, pretty much keep talking no matter what. So, Waffle Gaming, you have been warned that you may draw me into an extended conversation about Furies one day. Um, Hopefully not, for both of our sake. So, I think the only ones that are left here are Mocha and Paul. I appreciate you sticking with me. Conversation, again, has gone into a weird avenue, as it always does when you guys um, come together. It is the perfect storm of weird. It is Paul from Oregon beaming the pink ray, the pink ray of weirdness, all the way to Columbia, Maryland. That is a powerful beam of energy, my friends. A powerful beam of information. Um, I appreciate it, Paul. Thank you. Mocha, thank you. Duncan, for showing up. I appreciate that. And our conversation that we had. If you guys aren't tired of going live, go see David in just about half an hour. Um, it will be worth your time. I believe he's going to answer questions. David is a law enforcement officer in, I think, Labrador, Canada, which I've been, and it's a beautiful, beautiful area. It is a very wild island. I believe Labrador is an island. It might be a peninsula. There's a difference. Much love to both of you too. Thank you very much, and I will see you guys later. Take care.